far would you go to save the life of someone you loved? That's the question raised in Transplant. It's a medical thriller written by Dr. John Elefteriades of the Yale School of Medicine, and he is here with us today. Welcome to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's sum up this book for our viewers. We're dealing with a brilliant doctor, a ruthless billionaire, a forbidden surgery. Very intriguing.
It is a number of intriguing elements in terms of the characters and the plot, but it's all based on actual medical fact. Every operation in it is real. The deep freezing of patients is real. The heart and a half operation is real. And I enjoy taking the reader with me into the operating room.
Because it's something that you know about very well. Set up the story for us. It deals with an ethical dilemma that may be common in the not-so-distant future.
I think it may happen, Sonia. To my knowledge, the exact ethical dilemma that comes up in this book has not happened yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened today or tomorrow. As you know, there are wonderful examples of selfless giving of organs to others, not only to family members, but there are wonderful individuals who give their organs to strangers. And it's probably one of the greatest manifestations of man's love for his fellow man. This particular book kicks it up a notch because the organs that are donated are usually double organs where we have redundancy in the body. I don't want to give away the plot, but this kicks it up a notch and asks just how far would a parent go and how far should a parent be allowed to go to save the life of his loved one.
Okay, well that definitely gives us an idea. Now, like your main character, you are chief cardiac surgeon at Yale New Haven Hospital. So did you paint this character after yourself in many ways?
I did in many ways. I've been fortunate in my career to lecture in 29 different countries, just about every state in the country. So I've been exposed to many different environments. And I took a lot of that travel and incorporated it into the book. There are segments in Europe, there are segments on the island of Haiti where I worked for 3 months in the jungle, and all of that is incorporated in the book. However, everything that happens in the book, other than the medicine, is fictional.
And as a doctor yourself, I'm sure this is an extreme case in the book, but you, I'm sure, have dealt with ethical dilemmas yourself in this business.
They come up all the time in our daily work. Do you offer an operation to an elderly person? When do you accept that you're not going to win the battle and allow a life to end? And how do you pick a recipient for an organ? These are all very difficult dilemmas that come up all the time. The particular one in this book, to my knowledge, has not arisen. And people get the impression that it's about selling organs, and I encourage that impression. I like to mislead the reader, and it's not going to turn out to be about selling of organs. Although that happens in India, Pakistan, you can go and buy an organ. The tragedy of that is, although it results in a sudden infusion of a couple $1,000s into an impoverished family, when sociologists come back a year or two later, the family's in the exact same circumstances that they were before that one-time infusion of funds.
Now, before this book, before Transplant, you've written other books. This is your first novel, though, right?
It is my first novel. I have written a lot of scientific books, medical books, but for the general public, I tested the waters. I put my toes in the water and tested writing for the general public. I'm very proud of a book called Your Heart, An Owner's Guide, that I hope tells you everything you would want to know about symptoms that you might feel from your heart, the tests that you should have, and the different treatment options available. And then last year we did a book called The Woman's Heart, An Owner's Guide. And I don't pretend to understand the woman's heart emotionally. That would be a book if I could do that. But
well, if you did, you'd have women lining up.
But it explains a lot about the unique features of a woman's heart. A woman's heart is smaller. A woman's heart is in a special hormonal milieu in which the man's heart doesn't find itself. And then, of course, a woman's heart has to do with pregnancy, and then it has to deal with menopause. And these all put unique strains on the woman's heart.
So what inspired you to go the way of fiction?
I had a major in French literature at Yale when I was an undergraduate, and I've loved literature my whole life. I've always hoped to write some fiction, but then the turning point for me was I had the privilege of caring for Robert Ludlum, one of the world's greatest greatest fiction novelists. I cared for him on 2 different occasions. And I'm not revealing any confidence. He was gracious enough to dedicate one of his books to our team at Yale. And as I would round on him each day after his operations, we would talk about writing, and especially writing fiction. And I took away what he taught me. He said, "John, the hardest part is to get the kernel idea, the nugget that will underlie the book." He said, once you have that, you just put characters and plot developments on that framework. And he said, "John, I don't know how you get the nugget of the book." And Sonia, somehow, as you mentioned, in these ethical dilemmas that come up in my everyday life, the thought came to me, what if an individual wanted to make this very special donation, which is the crux of this book? And I researched it. I can't find any evidence that it's ever happened. I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I think any parent wouldn't hesitate to take a bullet for his child, wouldn't hesitate to cover his child if there was an earthquake and debris was falling. And I'm surprised that this particular type of donation hasn't come up yet.
With your job as chief cardiac surgeon at Yale, I'm sure you don't have a whole lot of downtime, so it had to have been a challenge to find the time for this project of yours, to write this book.
It was a challenge. You know what they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. During my travels, I have a lot of downtime in airplanes, in airport lobbies, in hotel rooms, and I like to use that time beneficially.
And this book has really gotten a lot of attention, too. It was featured in USA Weekly magazine. You were on the Dr. Mehmet Oz show. You were interviewed by Vinny and Company, a national Sirius radio show. Did you expect that it would get this much attention? I
really did not, and I'm flabbergasted, to tell you the truth. I think that the reviewers have been unduly kind. We haven't had a single bad review.
That's great.
And for a first-time fiction writer, I feel like I'm an amateur, and I'm very grateful for the laudatory press that we've had.
Again, the book is called Transplant, and I'm told that's you on the cover, interestingly, is it?
It is. The publisher wanted to have a realistic cover, so we took a picture in the operating room.
Well, Dr. John Elefteriades, thank you so much for coming in.